Okay, so this drill here is what I'm going to show you that might help you to get out of your slump. I will say this before we start the video, which is one of the most horrible things you can do when you're in a slump is stay in practice mode. And what I mean by that is if you're in a match and you're thinking about your stroke or what you're doing wrong with your stroke, what you want to do a little bit different with your stroke, then you are not focusing on the match. You are in practice mode and you're probably going to lose the match, especially if you're playing somebody that's better than you or the same level as you. So on this drill, what I want to do is I'm going to show you what you need to do in practice mode. So when you're practicing, this is what you'll do. You will not think about any of this when you're in a match. Okay, after you practice this for a week or two or more, and you get used to doing this, you'll just automatically incorporate it into your game. Your body will take over and it'll do it itself. Let that happen. Don't try to force it when you're in the middle of a match. All right, so what we're doing here is instead of using the cue balls, we're using the stripe balls. And the reason being is because you can see how well you hit these balls. See, I've got the stripe going up and down this way, kind of like if it was a tire going down the road. And the reason why I'm doing that is to make sure you hit it correctly. Because if you hit it correctly, it's just going to keep traveling like it's a tire down the road. If you hit it to the left or to the right, you'll get a different spin on it, where that stripe will show you. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what you're doing wrong if you're doing something wrong in your stroke. Okay? So, with that said, this drill is to practice good mechanics. Bad mechanics is probably what got you in the slump in the first place. And what I mean by a good stroke is something that's completely repeatable. So keep your bridge hand at the same length away from your cue ball. They usually say anywhere between 9 to 11 inches is correct. But some people are different. Nobody plays this sport exactly like someone else. So whatever you're comfortable with, I really wouldn't go much more than 12 inches out there because you end up having some accuracy issues if you do. It might be something you want to think about fixing if your bridge hand is way back behind your cue ball. All right? So your bridge hand also wants to be stable, meaning you always want your palm on the table, couple of your fingers spread out to where you don't have any wobble in your bridge hand. If you're up here, you're going to have wobble on your bridge hand, which is going to cause problems with you striking the cue ball in the correct spot. So always have a good bridge with at least 3 things on the table at the same time. 4 is better. Okay? Now, when you get down into your stance, you're going to want to get down into your stance where your arm back here is perpendicular with the ground and you're about 1/4 of an inch away from your object ball. Okay? This grip needs to be very loose. Okay? You're just cradling. See these 3 fingers? Those are about the only thing that's holding the cue. These fingers here are just sort of cradling. They're not doing anything. Okay, you're just relaxing them. Okay? Now, what we're going to get into is what's going to be called your mantra, which is the things that you're going to do to make sure that what you do in your stroke is exactly the same every single time during this drill. Okay, you don't want to change anything. You don't want to change the way that you're aiming. You don't want to change the way that even your practice strokes. Okay, choose the number of practice strokes that you're used to, 2 or 3. If you go more than 3, you might want to think about calming that down a little bit and going back to 2 or 3. But always do the exact same thing every single time. Now, when you get into the line of your shot, it's the same thing. You're already looking at the shot when you're standing up, when you're chalking. You're already looking to see what you need to do. In this case, all we're doing is we're hitting this stripe ball into the corner pocket. We're not even aiming at a different object ball or anything. This is so that you can focus on your stroke. Okay, so get in line the same exact way with your stroke. You should already know the line that you're going to hit with the cue ball. So you already see your aiming line, right? So you get down here. Bridge hand's always going to be in the same spot. Use an open hand bridge so that your cue stick after your shot can tell you if you did something wrong. Okay, if your cue stick goes up in the air, you probably gripped and dropped your shoulder. If it goes to the side, you probably twisted your wrist one way or the other, or threw your elbow out. And so after you hit the ball, you want to freeze right there. You don't want to move because you want to look and make sure that you're still on the line, and you want to make sure that you did a couple of things correctly. See where my hand here is right underneath my pectoral muscle? That's called finishing the shot. Okay? And that means what you did is you did a proper, what most people will call follow through. We don't like calling it follow through because by saying follow through, a lot of people think that you have to do something extra at the end of your stroke. If that's not really the way follow through works. You're just finishing the stroke, which means you're going in that straight line. Okay? Other things that you need to think about are your eye patterns. What do I mean by eye patterns? Well, when most people that are kind of new to pool, or even some older people that have never been taught this, what they'll do is they'll get down on the ball, and they'll look at their cue ball, and then look up at the object ball they're going to hit, or in this case it's the pocket, look back down at the object or the cue ball, look back up at the object, look back down until they're happy with things. You should not do that. What you'll do is you'll give your brain too much information and it will shut down and stop focusing on what you're doing. Okay? The best way to do this is your practice strokes are when you want to look at the cue ball. You want to make sure that when you finish your practice strokes, you're hitting the cue ball where you think you're hitting it. After you finish your practice strokes and you're on your actual shot stroke, that's when your eyes go up to your object ball, or in this case the pocket, since we don't have the object ball, and they stay there. They do not move until you're through the shot. Okay? One last thing that you want to do with this is you want to pause on the last stroke when you're in the back. Okay? Right here, you want to pause before you finish your stroke. Now, the pause doesn't have to be very long. It can be just a second or two. But you don't want to go back real fast and then go forward right away. Why? Well, because if you're going back real fast and then you're pushing it forward, you're gripping. Otherwise, your cue stick would just go back this way further. Okay, the other reason for that is this motion uses your tricep. This motion uses your bicep. Well, if you're doing that all in one motion, you have both muscles contracting at the same time. That's what causes problems back here. You don't want that to happen. So when you come back here, you always want to pause a little bit and then come through and follow through. You want to keep the upper part of your arm still. You don't want to drop your elbow, move your elbow. All you want to use is the bottom part of your arm, like a pendulum, directly to the lower part of your pectoral muscle. Okay? Now, so this is the drill. You take those stripe balls, you line them up directly into that corner pocket where that stripe is going to tell you basically if you hit the correct part of that ball. If it rolls perfectly straight to where that stripe just looks like it's stood completely still in the right spot of the ball, then you succeeded in hitting the right part of the cue ball. If it kind of wobbles, you know you probably went off to a side. Okay? Like I said, you want to do this the same way every single time. And you probably want to tell yourself some key words to make sure that you do. Like for instance, I do this. Here's my keywords. Okay. Set. Aim. 2, which are my practice strokes. Object, meaning I put my eyes back on the object. Pause. Home.